Welcome one, welcome all to Max's Mic. I'm Max and I have the mic. Today's episode is an interview that I had with Alexa Ramos. She talks about what she's been doing, what she's been up to, her life, gives a little story, shines a little light on what's been going on in her world, as well as some advice that she'd give to anyone looking to be a sportscaster or work within the sports and baseball media and communications journalism field. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right.
Yes. Totally. Okay.
All right. So recording, here we go. Um, let's see. I guess why don't we start with just give a little rundown of who you are, what you've been doing, and just a quick little background. Start with that.
Sure. Sure. So my name is Alexa Ramos. I am currently the manager of youth content at Major League Baseball. I am a West Essex alum, class of 2011, from Fairfield, New Jersey, originally. So shout out to West Essex. I went to Rutgers University, studied journalism and with a concentration in sports media. I knew in high school that's something that I really wanted to pursue. And very early on in my career and throughout my life, I knew that I wanted to focus in sports media. I just had to find my niche, and it's been a very incredible career of navigating different opportunities. And I knew that my passion was baseball and softball, but I also got the experience and chance to work with other sports as well. So worked my way there. Had a lot of internships during my time at Rutgers. I was a softball player my whole life, played club softball. That was a big part of my journey and influence, but more, I got to focus in sports journalism in college and then internships, like I said. And then that led me to my first job with MLB Network right after college. And then I was there from 2016 to the end of 2021. And I've been in this current role since January of 2022.
Awesome. So you briefly talked about how you had always known that you wanted to work in the communications field and you wanted to do something with baseball. And I was just curious, is there a specific person or an event that really got you into both baseball and into the communications field? Or was it something that just kind of happened? It kind of just pieced itself together over time.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very baseball slash softball influenced family. My father, it was probably my biggest like role model of baseball. My dad, his passion was baseball his whole life growing up. He played in college and then decided to focus more on the career side of things, but kept baseball always as his passion. And one way he continued to do that was through coaching. So I grew up with a coach as a father my entire life. So I kind of had that staple instilled with him of just, not necessarily forced, but it was more like it was our bonding thing. It was what brought us together. My favorite, best memories, majority of them are at a baseball field, whether I'm a fan, whether I'm playing. And a big part of that is because of him. My aunt, actually, ironically, on my mom's side, still is, but was a very incredible softball player growing up. She was a big time athlete as well. She also played in college, won a national championship, and is in her college's Hall of Fame personally and with her team. So there was kind of no escape. Uh, but I will say, like, I like to stress that, it was my choice to continue it as a passion and as a job. And I'm very grateful that I had so much support. My uncle also, on my dad's side, he has worked with ESPN for almost a little over 20 years now. So, there's influence of other sports in my life as well. Just people that it's a community, and it's something that brought uh, just like happiness and laughs and passion throughout everything that we do on all sides of my family. So that's really where it stemmed from. And when I was, thinking about colleges and thinking about what I wanted to pursue, I knew, everybody, sometimes you think you know what you want to do, and then different things come at you and you want to try a multitude of things. And I think what worked out best for me was that I ruled out the things that I maybe wasn't the strongest in or things that I didn't love as much. And that gave me a little bit of an easier list or options of what to pursue in college. And that's how that led me into sports journalism, and just everything to do with it, to be honest.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to get into, you were talking earlier before we started about how crazy today's been with this upcoming event. I wanted to get a little bit, could you give like an average day? I mean, I feel like it sounded like every day there is no average, but what, I guess maybe then describe in depth of what events you've run. I guess
Sure.
maybe would be better.
Sure. So what my job entails is predominantly overseeing, managing, strategizing the content that goes onto our youth platforms and channels at MLB. So we have, I'll start it kind of like from the youngest to the oldest. So we have Play Ball, which is our first, like our, I would say our grassroots, our younger kids getting into the game. We try to highlight a lot of players that give back to kids in their communities or kids at the games. They throw, anything that really just inspires young boys and girls to play baseball and softball. And we also have a show on MLB Network that does the same type of messaging. But that's one of the platforms I run, and we're all on Instagram and Twitter. So we have that. Then we go to MLB RBI, which is now we just partnered with Nike. So we are Nike RBI, but on the social platforms, you'll see it as MLB RBI. That is our platform to showcase our youth travel teams and the travel teams and the teams throughout the country that are a part of our Nike RBI programs. Um, where they highlight the great athletes throughout the whole country, and Puerto Rico as well. And they showcase like what teams are doing in their communities. They advance, they play in their regionals and their sectionals. They go on to what we have as the Nike RBI World Series, which is great. So showcasing and trying to highlight what all the programs throughout the country are doing with their teams. And some of those teams are linked to professional teams. So sometimes, a lot of the times, professional teams will give back to RBI teams, which is amazing. And the highlight, or I should say, the goal of that also specifically with RBI, every and any town and team are welcome to register and join, but they try to bring baseball and softball to inner cities and kids that might not have the privilege of going on the really expensive teams or the travel, because all those things add up, right? So really,
Yeah.
really being able to just showcase and give an opportunity to everyone to try to play baseball and softball. So that's my job with that platform, are showcasing those teams. And then finally, the third platform we have is MLB Develops. And MLB Develops, I would say, that's been our biggest growth over the last couple of years. It's been incredible. All the platforms have grown, but to see what we do there is we have special programs and events for predominantly the high school range of ages, but some of the programs we do have for like we have girls baseball, softball, and baseball. And so with the girls baseball, I know that we have some programs that are from the 12-year-old range, so like 11 to 13, and then the rest of the programs we have for all three are all of the high school ages and levels. And that really is a little bit more, I would say, of some of the events are invite only. Some of the events are a little bit more exclusive in the sense that you are getting specific one-on-one training with the top professionals in our country. And not only that in our sport, but for example, baseball, our entire coaching staff is made up of former major leaguers, former major league managers, coaches. Softball, all former top collegiate players, professional softball players, Olympians, and so on. And then finally, with girls baseball, I would say a solid majority, almost 90%, if not 100% of the staff are made up of our USA women's national team baseball players, USA baseball women's national team players. So these kids are really getting the top tier level training, coaching experience, and that's what Major League Baseball does. We try to provide them that exposure, that experience, because you are at the highest level. And so, that all being said, my goal is to show that on social media. And the team I work with is phenomenal. I work really closely with MLB Network for a lot of our content. I work with our content team. It's really a group effort. It's not a solo job. It's not one person's idea. It's everybody's idea, but that's why everything comes out so well because there's so many people behind the scenes to make sure that we're amplifying these events, but more importantly, we're amplifying the story of these kids because they go on to become these incredible athletes. And even if they don't pursue it on a professional level, they take something from it to pursue it into their personal lives or off the field. And that's our goal. If we're doing that, then we're doing our job.
Sounds like there's a lot going on. The Nike RBI you talked about, what age group is that? I don't think you had mentioned that.
Yeah, so Nike RBI, I believe the youngest age group, I think they really start like early T-ball, early uh like 10U, 8U kind of level teams, and they go all the way up to seniors in high school, like juniors, seniors in high school,
Okay.
and
So
to
like the full
college.
travel. All right.
Yes, yes.
So it sounds like there's a lot going on, a lot of fun. I wanted to know because you seem to be working with a lot of kids, students, but maybe you've gotten to work with some pro athletes, and I was wondering who's like your favorite person. Who's your favorite person to get to meet, to get to work with, to get
Oh,
to be around? I know this is a tough question. Maybe you could do like a list of no specific order of top three, top five.
yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that list is so long. So,
So maybe some
really,
highlights.
I will say this, the positive, at least for me, like I have really, in all seriousness, I have really never come across, I'm fortunate to say this, I have really never come across a professional athlete in baseball or softball that wasn't someone awesome to work with and someone because, and I think a big part of that is just because when you present yourself professionally, but you also present yourself with a passion for what we're doing, that is very it's very contagious. And especially when the message is not so much about yourself and it's about the kids and you're giving back to the community, that's what brings us all together. Because once upon a time, we were all those kids. We were
Hmm.
all there. So there's just like a different positive light. And I'm very lucky that I get to stay in that lane, which is great.
Yeah.
But man, so before I was in this role, like I said, I was at MLB Network, and I was there for a long time, and I worked my way up to becoming a field producer. And I think that's where I got the most exposure of being around professional, current baseball players, softball players, former major leaguers, former Hall of Famers. Like that's like really where I got my initial exposure. And I still come across those people today, but just not as often because I'm not on site at big league games. Now I'm doing more on the youth side of things. But man, well, I'll tell you this, for softball for sure. I have to like kind of break it up that way, I think. For softball, I was a softball player, like I said, my whole life. So when I first met Jenny Finch and Natasha Watley, that was like those were my heroes. So to watch, and there are so many women to name, to be honest, but like meeting Jenny for the first time, meeting Natasha, these are women that have achieved so much in softball, but are also Olympians. They were like the it girls of softball at the time. Like there's just so many, but now I get the privilege to be able to work with them even closer when it comes to softball because they are two of the three of our softball ambassadors. We also have Lauren Chamberlain, who's a really big name for a lot of people that still continue to follow softball. So um, to be able to do that was great. Those were like my starstruck, like moments. Um, man, baseball's really hard. I feel like it was a little different for me because although you have this respect for these professional athletes, right? But a lot of them were my age. So it felt a little weird to like necessarily like fangirl or freak out over that, right? Because we're professionals
Yeah.
and in a way, we're coworkers. Like I do my job, you do your job. So that's how I always see them as professional coworkers. But I think like meeting a lot of the older Hall of Famers was a big, like, that was kind of a moment for me and what they've done for the game. Like meeting Andre Dawson for the first time, meeting Derek Jeter, meeting Man, I'm like blanking out because there's just too many. Dave Winfield. Um, these are just people that change the game, right? Like changed
Yeah.
history of baseball in so many ways. And you know, I get to be around that. I mean, when I was at MLB Network alone, those hallways are just filled with knowledge of former athletes, just players, just being themselves and talking. You just want to listen. Like you just want to be a sponge and just listen to them speak. I would sit in meeting rooms. I pinch myself when I say this out loud. I would sit in meeting rooms, production meetings with Pedro Martinez and John Smoltz talking about pitching. It's like, come on, like, come on, like, and you can't, anybody that gets to share their story and share their perspective, it's just like you have to just be a sponge and take it in. You just like
Yeah.
that's the best of how you learn. You learn from just listening to their authentic stories. So those were like the moments that it was like, whoa, all right. This is crazy.
That sounds that sounds awesome. That sounds really something, just being there listening to the greats talk about how it's done. I
Yeah.
mean, getting to meet them,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the greats and what they've accomplished, but I'm interested. Some people may think one thing or another, but to you, what was your greatest accomplishment? What are you most proud of?
Mm. Oof. I take this two ways. If that's cool, if I can give it a little two-part answer.
Wow, definitely.
I think what I'm the first thing that comes to mind is continuing to push myself to know that this is what I wanted to do when a lot of people may have felt like, she wasn't going to get there or how do I word this? I have to think about this.
People think that you couldn't make it to one spot, so you were stuck here,
Yeah.
whereas you never wanted to keep going. You just wanted to, this is where you want to be, and you're just going to stay here and never try to keep pushing because there's no goal at the end for you. You've reached it.
Yeah, and there's so many things I still need to accomplish, and I'm still learning and from so many people around me. I think that being said, one thing I'm very proud of in a very humble way is that as much as I had mentioned earlier, like my father, who's got an influence in the game and baseball in the New Jersey community, especially, my uncle who has influence as well and has a tremendous career with ESPN and early in his day with ABC. Um, I think the biggest thing was when I was pursuing this and when I was working at my internships and when I first applied for MLB Network and went for that job, I wanted, and I say this humbly because those two men are two of my heroes, but I wanted to do it as Alexa, not as so and so's daughter, so and so's niece. It was very important for me to earn those things on my own and to develop my own credibility, my own personal relationships, my own personality. But then once you saw that, then I tell you, who dad is, who uncle is, whomever. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way. Um, as a female in sports, that was very important for me to do. But the support and the amount of people that just really understood that and respected that and kept me accountable when I did well or when I had something that I could do better. That's like the biggest thing I'm proud of is that, I built that, but I also honored them in the way that they would carry themselves and handle things. And I wanted to make them proud to see me doing it in my own way. So that's on a personal thing. I think professionally, my proudest moment, um, there's a few things that I could say, like my first All-Star game, my first World Series. Those are like big moments that are just phenomenal memories. But as I get a little bit up the like older in this career, working with the kids, just like working with young athletes, just brings a different energy when you're on this side of it. And I think when you get to see base, especially with like the high school players going on to college, going on to maybe studying sports journalism in school or doing something else, working in the game somehow. I think that brings a lot of pride to me because we get to tell their stories and then they get to go on and achieve their dreams and they remember you. That brings so much pride to me to like to see them, to remember them when they were 15, 16 years old. And now some of them are major leaguers. Now some of them are doing really well in the minor leagues. So many softball players go on to play collegiate softball and then go on. And then the women in baseball, to see how much that has grown and to see some of these young girls now playing on the USA women's national team. And we have a few now playing in college on baseball teams. I think that like I have a group pride of that because I get to know them and see them do that. So have a very small role in trying to help amplify their success gives me pride.
That sounds awesome. I can fully understand for the personal aspect of wanting to do your own thing. I
Yeah.
get that, and it makes a lot of sense that a lot of people will pin the success on, oh, he's your father or your uncle, your whomever, they got you here. But being
Yeah.
able to say and back it up that you did it on your own really is, and I understand, just amazing and fulfilling. Before I have one last question, but before I got there, I don't think you had mentioned or spoke about what this event is that you're planning this weekend. So I wanted to hear a little
Yeah.
bit about that, and then I got one last question after that. So
Sure. Bring it on. Any question you have. So this weekend we are preparing for the Dream Series. So the Dream Series, I mean, I can't do it justice in a small sentence of really what it encaptures, but um, so the Dream Series is based in Tempe, Arizona, at the Tempe Diablo Stadium, which for those that may not know is the Angels spring training facility. Um, they MLB invites, I want to say we're about a little over less 90 of the top high school athletes throughout the country from diverse backgrounds to come, and it's almost like a 3 day major league level. It's similar to like a spring training, if you will, where they focus instead on different hitting, but also different positions specifically. So Dream Series really started out as a pitchers and catchers camp, and it grew so wide and so widespread that, and so many people wanted to be a part of it and involved that they expanded it a little bit to infield, outfield as well. But the real significance of it is that it's during Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. And so his whole message, the inspiration of the title, Dream, comes from him who had a dream to see the things that are, really well accomplished today and growing. And the goal is to continue those things and that equality, that opportunity, those messages to spread that for us in baseball, to grow the game of baseball in different diverse communities, in different backgrounds, to grow a majority of young Black and African American players to play the game of baseball more and to have those numbers grow. That's a huge push for us, and to see all kids playing. It's not just that, it's all kids, but to encourage it throughout so many backgrounds, maybe and that's really the message that MLB and MLB develops, which is the program likes to spread. It's really about giving these young athletes opportunity that they might not get anywhere else. A lot of players we find, we have different programs that we search for the talent throughout the country. And sometimes we find players that might not have the funds or the financial backing to go to these big time tournaments or programs, whereas MLB sees their raw potential and sees their passion and wants to further it, right? So that's like a big part of what Dream Series is. All of the coaching staff are former major leaguers, coaches, managers, players that have been at the highest levels, that have been working with or on Team USA during the WBC. Um, our main, like, I mean, I could sit here and talk about all the coaches, but just a couple of guys that might stand out. Like we have Howie Kendrick, who's a part of our staff. He was a World Series champion in 2019, also the NLCS MVP. We've got guys like Marquise Grissom, 19-year career, most notably with the Braves, but a few teams, I believe. Huge outfielder, four-time Gold Glover. I mean, like just a wealth of knowledge. We have guys that have been in our programs. Marvin Freeman's been with us a long time pitcher. LaTroy Hawkins, I believe a 19-year career. I hope I got that right. But he'd kill me if I didn't say that right. No, 19-year careers. LaTroy's got like all of the coaches, every single staff. One of our main coordinators, Jerry Manuel, who was a manager, a player, but also a manager for many years. A lot of people remember him with the Mets in our area. But I mean, just I could go down the list of guys. I'm probably forgetting some to name, but every single player, every single coach has an impact. And that is like, this is the kickoff event to the year, every year that starts this off and then inspires people to get more involved with our game and want to be a part of our program. So it brings and like builds that camaraderie. And it's just, at the end of the day, these kids are incredible athletes, but they're also really incredible young men. So we provide them a lot of resources in terms of guest speakers as well. Like when you come to our events, I think the coolest part that doesn't always get remembered and highlighted that needs to is that, yeah, we're giving them full on major league exposure and drills and demonstrations and game experiences, but we're also giving them access to guest speakers that are scouts, current head college coaches, um, mental health and wellness coaches. That is huge. Just little things like that, that's high. That's the highest level you can get. And just to remember that you're a person and a player, like you have to be a student athlete. You have to take care of you first. And that's just not in a classroom. That's everywhere. Take care of you and know yourself. And then you're going to perform your best on the field. So that's something we like to really encourage. And I think that Major League Baseball does a phenomenal job in that.
Awesome. All right. Another question. What advice would you give to a high school student or younger or older who's trying to or wants to be a part of this sports journalism, communications, media field? What advice would you have for someone looking to possibly even do the same thing that you're doing right now?
Yeah. I would say, there's so many ways. I would, the first thing I would say is, and I say this for a lot of things in life, but for this sport and this industry especially, don't ever let anyone dim your light. Don't ever, if you are passionate about this and you want this, there's a way to go about it. Understanding that it's more than just you, it's a team effort in everything you do. So while there are certain times where you have to look out for yourself, you have to remember that every move you make from the minute, like you are always representing yourself in this industry. Everything you do, everything you say, especially nowadays with social media, it's a reflection of you. And so when you're pursuing a career, whether you want to be in front of or behind a camera, just in the industry as a whole, remember that, don't be afraid to reach out to people, go out for opportunities that might not be as glamorous at first, but that's how you're going to build credibility. No one graduates high school or college and ends up on Good Morning America. Nobody immediately ends up, in their dream job. You have to earn your stripes. And the way that you do that is by working really hard, being understanding sacrifice. And what I mean by that, that could go so long. But for example, a small example for me is when I started working at MLB Network, it was my dream, right? Like that was what I wanted to do. But one of the first things I was told right away was, hey, listen, we're gonna mix up your schedule, but there's gonna be a lot of times because when do baseball games happen? At night. We're on the East Coast here in New Jersey, but when do the West Coast games happen? They're 3 hours back, right? So
Yeah.
your shifts might not be the nice 9 to 5 weekends off. Like your shifts are going to be sometimes 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. You are going to work weekends. And I will tell you something that at first hearing that is like, oh gosh, like no, but you get a little nervous, but you have to realize that like that's what all professional athletes are sacrificing. That's what all reporters are sacrificing. They don't have 9 to 5s weekends off. They're at those games working, grinding doing things after the game, doing the behind the scene work that nobody sees, like hours and hours of sacrifice put into this to be the people that you look up to one day, right? Because they
Hmm.
followed it from somebody else. So I think just recognizing that and having a feel of that and just always staying true to who you are and staying positive. That's always my biggest point, is to just recognize like what it's going to take, but that push yourself, because you can do it. You're gonna end up there.
All right. All right. So I'll ask it again. I'm looking into getting into colleges, looking into the college process, picking and choosing which schools that I want to hopefully be a part of. And I was wondering, which programs do you know that are better than others? Which schools would you say, if there are any schools that are better than others, which ones would they be?
Sure. So I'm so glad you asked this, because I think there's such a pressure sometimes when it comes to sports journalism and it comes to communications of certain schools, like, oh, people say this is the school I need to go to in order to be taken seriously in the industry, or I have to go to this. And I'm going to be real honest and tell you, when it comes to journalism, when it comes to this particular field, the college you go to is what you make out of it in this industry. For example, if there are, of course, like very well-known schools and programs that have outstanding journalism schools and awards and accolades. But the truth is, what you need to, aside from writing and being grammatically correct and punctual and everything, the experience you need to do well in this industry, you're not going to find it in a textbook. You're going to find it from experiencing it in real life and learning from those that went through it too. That's the best part about being in journalism, being in communications. There's a lot of things that can help, like textbooks help. I'm not saying don't read a textbook. Of course they help. But the real experience of lessons learned, failure, successes are when you're on site, when you're in the moment, when you're like a part of the program. So for example, just to narrow it down a little bit, if you're looking to go into sports journalism, let's say, you want to find a school and a program whose athletic programs you really like, whose teams you like to follow. Because that's going to be something. Find a school that's got a great newspaper on campus, a great television station on campus, a great radio station on campus. Those are things to look into, because if that's what you want to pursue, then you need to get those initial steps. Don't worry so much about the name of the school. As much as that holds a little bit of weight, it's what you get out of it. And I say that because when I was in high school, a lot of my friends were getting accepted to really big schools. A lot of kids were getting accepted to Syracuse, to Cornell, to Georgetown, and those are phenomenal schools, like without a doubt. I was getting pretty decent acceptance offers myself, but I wasn't, I felt the pressure of, oh my gosh, do I need to go to Syracuse? Do I need to go to an Ivy League in order to be taken seriously? And well, yes, if you achieve those are phenomenal. But believe it or not, I didn't, I didn't even think at the time of Rutgers. To me, it was like, oh no, I'm not sure if I want to stay in New Jersey. I don't know if that's the right move for me. And I didn't do enough research to really understand the opportunities that Rutgers opened for me. And when I got to Rutgers and I wound up saying yes and I wound up going there, it took me to get involved in the journalism school and to get involved, to talk to professors, to ask questions. There were things that I did really well at. There were things I failed at. There were things that I learned I liked. There were things I registered and realized I didn't like. That's the point of a school. That's the point of college. You are the one that makes that choice. So I think that if to start there, don't worry so much about the outside noise. Focus on what you see yourself becoming a part of when you get to a school. And that's where you should make your decision on how it's going to impact you personally.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. Um,
Yeah.
just wanted to show off one more thing. You had recently come last year, and I'm sporting the
Ah,
shirt. I was able to get one. There were some extras left behind. I'd gotten the
yay.
bracelet, but stumbled across an extra shirt,
I love
so I'm
it.
sporting that right now as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Can't wait
awesome.
for
Made my
Jackie
day.
Robinson Day. Can't wait for Jackie Robinson Day to wear it again.
Please, that's awesome. I
I
love
will.
that so much. Thank you for wearing that with pride. I love it. Love that.
So I just wanted to
That's
finish it off with
great.
that. And thank you again for meeting me.
That's of course, anytime. I'm so happy. Thank you for having me. This is great.
All right. Goodbye.
All right.
Thank you for watching this episode of Max's Mic. Stay tuned. Check out some more content that is on this channel. Check out my Instagram at Max's_Mike for more content. I know that there was a podcast of mine, but now all the content is going to be here on YouTube. So stay tuned for some more videos. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Good night.